This is the second of 3 videos for college office PPR orientation. This section will cover the various parts of the self-study report that you'll put together. So there are 6 sections of the PPR self-study that you'll compose as an office in this process. The first section has to do with the executive summary of the document. If you think about this as really the most critical, most essential, and hopefully pithy version that pulls together everything else that's in the document. So if you needed to hand some new material to, say, a new office staff member that was coming on board, this might be the section, right? So if you needed to describe to someone who was just coming into the office what the office does, what it's done well over the last, say, 4 to 5 years, and then what its goals are. This is the kind of kernel of the PPR self-study. So there are 3 sections, or subsections rather, to section 1. The first section is an executive summary of key findings. So this should be a look backward at the previous assessment reports that have gone into the college and what you've learned from completing this self-study. And then sections 1, 2, and 1, 3 are a look forward. What are the recommendations in terms of meeting the goals of the office that you want to make? So for here, you'll want to summarize the most important observations that come out of the documents in the self-study. And that should be really a collaboration between office personnel and any other stakeholders, other offices that you work with, as to what priorities you want to set and put on record to achieve over about a 4 to 5 year period. Prioritize in order of importance. This is the first thing we want to accomplish, the second, third, and so forth. Based on those goals, you should be making recommendations that you'll report on in each annual assessment report following PPR. And then if there are any resource recommendations, things like we need new software, we need to update this, we need to be rethinking about our facilities, right? Our campus map, our footprint, those should come as well. What you'll finally do then is make a list of objectives that should be tied to assessment results, right? So tied to the performance of the office, that prioritizes what the office should be taking on in the next 4 to 5 years. So those objectives should be written as SMART outcomes. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So you want to be specific about what you should accomplish, say, in a given year. You want to be measurable. So what will be the things that you look for to know that you've achieved an objective? It should be attainable in that it's realistic, so it's something that we can do within the resources and mission and scope of the college. It should be relevant, right? So it should be important to our students and other people that we work with, provide services to, and it should be timely, right? So we should be able to say we're going to achieve this goal within a certain time frame. So that's SMART. The next section of PPR is to lay out the mission, vision, goals, and objectives, and how those align together and with the college itself. So let's start with mission. Your mission statement for an office shouldn't change much over time, although certainly PPR is a time to tweak or adjust it and revise it if needed. That should be a concise statement, maybe 1 or 2 sentences at most, that outlines the value that the office brings. So this isn't just a statement of what you do, but this is a statement of why you do it for the college and how it's linked to the mission. So that should be written in the present tense, right? So this office creates value by doing the following, right? How does this office align to the college's mission? So again, about 2 to 3 sentences at most. A vision statement should be a bulleted list that's written in the future tense. So these are the kinds of things that you do, the almost day-to-day activities where you're looking forward in terms of what you need to be able to accomplish to realize the mission. So to create value, you have the mission statement. In the vision statement, you're saying the office will do these things. The office will do A, will do B, will do C in terms of meeting its mission. the mission and vision for an office shouldn't necessarily change much over time. Certainly it will evolve. What should change within a PPR cycle are these next two components, the goals and objectives. Goals should be mapped out in a way that over a 4 to 5 year window, these are the things that we want to accomplish. So this is becoming much more concrete and much more timely. Next year, we need to take on this project. The year after that, we'll take on this next project. So these should be our goals that are coming through. And objectives are the annual measures that you will use to determine whether or not you're achieving those goals. Right, so again, goals and objectives should be expressed through action verbs and be smart. Right, so we will accomplish the following goals within this periodic program review cycle. So to map those out in terms of how objectives relate to goals, think about your mission, your vision. What are each of your goals? And then along those goals, what do you want to be accomplishing in the first year, right, as a milestone, a second year, third year, fourth year, and fifth year? So you may not start each of your goals each year, and you don't need to report on each goal in each annual assessment report, but you'll likely have activity that's working year to year, and that's where you map out those objectives. Let's think about how you would map out your goals to objectives then. If you had a goal that you wanted to arrive in California, well, that's a pretty vague goal, just to arrive in California. When would you get there? How would you get there? Are all left to the imagination, right, or unspecified. So goals that aren't specific likely are not going to be accomplished because they hang out there without a clear sense of the way in which we're going to accomplish them. But if we wanted to say we want to arrive in California by next week, well, now we suddenly have a time. If we got more specific, we want to arrive in California by next week through driving. Now we have a means to get there. So our goal has become SMART, right? So we're talking about something specific, it's attainable, it's measurable. We can check off what state we're in. Are we in California or not? And so we have something much more concrete. Our objectives then are in the process that it takes to achieve that goal. What are the things that we want to be measuring? So we might say, for instance, if we want to arrive in California by next week through driving, what we need to do is to pass through a number of states in our car in order to arrive there. If we go too slowly, we're never going to get there and meet our goal. And if we go too quickly, we might miss things that we wanted to have accomplished along the way, right? It might have been not valuable to do things just too haphazardly or too quickly. And so if we come up with certain objectives, milestones that you want to achieve, kind of crack open the goal piece by piece over the review cycle, you'll see that that's a way of taking larger goals and breaking them down into objectives. Section 3 covers the day-to-day college offices and services that take place throughout Cedar Crest. So these begin with the major services and mapping out as a list what it is the office provides. So that should be more detailed then with a flow chart in terms of just an understanding of how those services flow out to the campus community, and then any policy and operation manuals. You'll close this section by thinking of any compliance obligations that you have. So begin by mapping out the major functions and services in the offices. This typically comes from the job descriptions of personnel who are working in the office. But here at the office level, what you want to be doing is capturing how people work together. You should provide a flow chart that shows how the office's services and workflow operate, right? So it should be simple, but ultimately representative. So if you needed in one visual to show who handles what in the office, right, in terms of the services that it's providing to the stakeholders, this is where a flow chart. So this is different from an organizational chart where you're mapping out who reports to whom and the duties under each staff position. With a flow chart, you're talking about the unit as a whole, right? So we work with students in this way. We work with other college offices, whether it's information technology or student financial services or the registrar's office, in those ways. And you're using your flow chart to show what that relationship should look like. You'll also want to provide a list of any services or functions that don't exist, but you think should be created over the next review cycle, 4 to 5 years. And then list here and include the office's procedural manuals. So if you needed to train someone in how a particular service or function of the office is accomplished, we need to have those documented in procedural manuals. You'll also want to report here on any compliance areas that the office oversees, whether that's with regard to internal college policies, such as, say, student conduct, or external regulations. So if you're the registrar's office managing our FERPA obligations, or the campus police managing our Clery Act reporting, the annual crime reports, that safety reports that come out on campus. This is where you'll report on those. Section 4 has to do with assessment of previous goals and objectives. So this is looking back. You should pull together the annual assessment reports that you've been filing over the past periodic review cycle. Review those in terms of any data, so the services that the office is providing, how effective have those been, and how have you made improvements to those services, right? So here we want to think about continuously improving office services. If you have any survey instruments that you regularly use, this is also a place to document those. So annual assessment reports should include data and a schedule for each office goal during the previous review cycle. So those you should have been mapping out the objectives for the office and then any annual metrics. So say, for instance, we wanted to improve the number of students using a particular service, right? So whether that's coming in for transcripts in the registrar's office, whether it's logging in to computers, whether it's how we're packaging families in the financial aid office, right? What are the metrics that we want to pull together that help us know whether we're achieving our goals through the year-to-year objective milestones? That should include a mix of both direct and indirect measures. Direct measures in annual assessment are the kind of hard evidence that we know whether or not we're meeting goals. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to improve the turnaround time between when a student requests something and when the office is able to follow through on it. Right? So that might be requesting transcripts, that might be maintenance, that might be an appeal of conduct policy. The direct evidence of that would be looking at when the student asked for the service and the turnaround time on average, right? So you look at the first year, second year, third year, right? So are we able to improve based upon the services that we're providing, how efficient our ability to deliver on that service may be? An indirect measure are perceptions that students and others have of it. So not just the average time, which would be a direct measure, but here asking students, are you satisfied with the time it took us to deliver on what we were hoping to accomplish? So that's an indirect measure, right? So not only are we creating value by, say, doing things more efficiently, but do our students, do other stakeholders on campus perceive that as an indirect measure? And then here what you'll want to do is to indicate how you have used those assessment results to improve the design and delivery of office services. What changes did you make that came about as a result of assessments? That's very critical. It's not just enough to have assessment results. We need to be able to document how we're improving what we do based on those results. And include here any survey results. Show us the evidence, in short, right? So if you're looking at college-wide surveys, such as our National Survey of Student Engagement, or other survey instruments that come from our Office of Institutional Research, please include those those results that are relevant to your college office. Section 5 gets into the personnel and organizational structure. Here you should have your org chart, the office director, and then what the reporting structure is. Include the most recent job descriptions, and a list of all personnel, years of employment, and current resumes of personnel within the office. So your org chart should just show the layout of who reports to whom. So if people have a question about their duties or what they should be prioritizing in terms of the office work. The org chart shows us a way to map those out. Again, update your resumes for the office, and you'll want to include in this section the percentage of office personnel overall that have participated in some form of professional development that's recognized by the director since the last office review. So are your office staff staying current in their field is the question that the assessment committee will be evaluating. Section 6 goes to facilities and equipment that are utilized by the office. So here what you want to be looking at is the footprint, office space, the kinds of infrastructure needs that the office has, and then equipment. So do you have enough software that's appropriate to accomplish the task, the right mix of, say, computers, whatever other instruments or equipment that you need. And then in Section 6, what you want to do is 6.3 is describe how you're utilizing those resources. So if there's unused space or unused equipment, this is certainly a place for some efficiency. And then if you're making the case for added services or added needs, this is where you'll want to map out where those needs would be put to good use within the office.